我过去看到终结者里面的液态金属，它是一个非常复杂的机器，它可以接收信号，然后转换为自身的一些运动，另外也可以实现液固之间的转换。我们现在所实现的就是可以将电能转换为液态金属的机械能。那么，它现在面临的最大问题就是形状的精确控制。
朝一个人形的机器人进化有非常大的难度，但是呢，它还是有这种可能性。
According to the Iranian Students News Agency, Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, or AEOI, says Russia and Iran have reached an agreement to jointly produce nuclear fuel. AEOI head Ali Akbar Salehi says a preliminary agreement with Russia was reached during the nuclear negotiations between Iran and the major world powers in 2015. A roadmap has been developed for the joint production. It will take 2 years to be implemented. Salehi also announced a Tehran-Astana deal to buy 950 tons of uranium ore from Kazakhstan over 3 years. It's part of Iran's international nuclear deal known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action.
It would be wonderful. A dream would be that no country would have nukes. But if countries are going to have nukes, we're going to be at the top of the pack.
This is a reversal, certainly, of the basic approach of the Obama administration, which was to find ways internationally to curtail the production of nuclear weapons and to move us downward, ratchet it down rather than upward. And this is actually what we've been doing since the end of the Reagan presidency, when Reagan and the Soviets signed an accord. Trump wants to reverse this, and he's sending a very different message from his administration that we are going to build more and more, rather than working in the path of agreements. And it can be dangerous. This is a world where nuclear weapons are not very controllable. That's been the issue policymakers have been trying to deal with. So it's not necessarily about having more than the other person. The ideal goal is to have agreements where everyone has less.
According to Reuters, Max Hill, the lawyer tasked with overseeing British laws on terrorism, told the Sunday Telegraph that Islamic State militants were targeting cities and posed an enormous ongoing risk which none of us can ignore. Hill said, in terms of the threat that's represented, I think the intensity and the potential frequency of serious plot planning, with a view to indiscriminate attacks on innocent civilians of whatever race or color in metropolitan areas, represents an enormous ongoing risk that none of us can ignore. According to Hill, these plans cannot be ignored, as the attacks are of a similar scale to those staged by the Irish Republican Army 40 years ago.
The Philadelphia Inquirer reported that a Jewish cemetery in Philadelphia has been vandalized. 75 to 100 grave sites were reported damaged at Mount Carmel Cemetery on Sunday in the latest vandalism incident at a Jewish burial ground in the United States. Officials say the damage includes toppled headstones snapped off at the base. One cemetery visitor said of the incident, "I'm hoping it was maybe just some drunk kids, but the fact that there's so many, it leads one to think it could have been targeted."
Yemeni medical staff staged a protest in front of the UN office in the capital Sana'a, calling for an end to Saudi Arabia's blockade. Protesters also called on the UN to provide the Yemeni people with access to medical care. They complained that many children in Yemen die due to the lack of access to medicine. Protesters say that millions of Yemenis are deprived of medicine and humanitarian supplies as Sana'a airport is closed because of the Saudi blockade.
The health sector of Yemen is deteriorating, and 51% of its services are not able to offer medical attention, including the special intensive health care, which threatens the lives of millions of Yemenis. Moreover, the medicine supplies that were in storage are now running out and disappearing from the market.
Yemeni children are suffering because of this terrible, pointless war. Some of them became orphans and some became special needs. We don't just suffer from war, we also suffer from horrible killer sickness. Because of the blockade, Yemeni children cannot travel to have medical attention.
The United Nations has warned about the dire humanitarian situation in Yemen as Saudi Arabia presses ahead with its war. Yemeni forces, including the Ansarullah and allied army units, have been fighting back against the Saudi aggression, which started back in March of 2015. War has killed more than 12,000 Yemenis and displaced millions more.
Well, Iran's Navy has started major drills in the Sea of Oman and the northern parts of the Indian Ocean.
The maneuvers have a message of peace and friendship for the entire region, especially Muslim countries. The drills have continued according to plan. They're aimed at improving our defensive capabilities based on deterrence. We provide security for maritime trade while defending our interests and resources. The peace and security of the region could only be ensured by regional countries.
Well, the commander of the Iranian Navy, Habibullah Sayari, officially kick-started the drills on board the country's most advanced destroyer. He said the goals of the drills include enhancing Iran's defense capabilities, establishing security in regional waters, combating maritime terrorism, and testing the Navy's latest equipment. The four-day drills, codenamed Velayat 95, will cover a vast area of 2 million square kilometers stretching from the Strait of Hormuz between the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman to the northern parts of the Indian Ocean and the Strait of Mandeb between Yemen and Djibouti. Surface and subsurface vessels accompanied by marine helicopters are planned to perform operations.
The Mexican city of Tijuana lies just 25 kilometers south of San Diego. It's Mexico's fourth largest city and its largest city along the U.S. border. 20% of Mexican exports go through Tijuana on their way to the U.S., and 30% of U.S. tourists travel through the city on their way down south. It's also a stopping ground for many Central American and South American migrants, hoping to make a living in America. But migrant shelters are filling up as the U.S. cracks down on illegal immigration.
There's 34 shelters in Tijuana, and from these shelters, there's around 3,500 Haitians, plus Central American running away from violence from Central America, and also plus the deported migrants who are being deported every day.
Hugo says people living in the shelters are responsible for their organization. Some of the shelters receive government and private funding, while other camps only receive private funds. Many migrants living here make by on around $5 per day. Sarah Lopez is the founder and head of one of Tijuana's shelters. She says every day is a struggle to make ends meet.
2 persons share this single bed. People also sleep in the corridors. It is only for male migrants here. Female migrants live separately.
Shelters in Tijuana are small in scale. The largest camp houses just 300 people. Organizers raise funds for migrants and help them find legal work in the U.S. But as Washington's immigration policy becomes stricter, more and more migrants are finding they have nowhere else to go. Tang Meng, CGTN.
It's the dramatic end to a competitive and controversial weekend for Mac Beggs. The 17-year-old Dallas area high school student won the title of champion in the girls' state wrestling competition Saturday. A mix of cheers and boos directed at the wrestler as he fell to his knees, appearing to soak in the win. Many in the audience feel Beggs has an unfair advantage on the road to victory. Beggs is a transgender athlete, born a girl, transitioning to become a boy. He takes testosterone injections to make that transition happen. Many believe that provides the young wrestler with an added competitive edge. His strength and agility are hard to miss on the mat.
So there's a big issue right now, right? And I think if he has been taking hormones or steroids, he should be wrestling boys.
That can't happen, though, according to the University Interscholastic League, which oversees public high school athletics. Current UIL rules state boys may not wrestle against girls and vice versa, and gender shall be determined based on a student's birth certificate. For Beggs, that means he's got no choice but to wrestle girls. Then there's the issue of the hormone therapy that would typically be disqualifying. Not in this case, says UIL Deputy Director Dr. Jamie Harrison.
The law is very, very specific that a student who is being administered performance-enhancing drugs by a physician cannot be made ineligible
The UIL insists it's willing to review its existing laws to see if they need to be changed by legislators. For now, the state stands by this weekend's competition, calling it fair. Today, Begg shares the gold with his peers.
I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for my teammates. That's honestly what the spotlight should have been on, is my teammates.
The young athlete wrestles with a new uncertainty. Next season, will he still face off with girls as a boy? Polo Sandoval, CNN, Cypress, Texas.
And I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake. A few days ago, I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are. They are the enemy of the people. Because they have no sources, they just make them up when there are none. I saw one story recently where they said 9 people have confirmed. There are no 9 people. I don't believe there was 1 or 2 people. 9 people. And I said, give me a break, because I know the people. I know who they talk to. There were no 9 people, but they say 9 people. And somebody reads it and they think, oh, 9 people, they have 9 sources. They make up sources. They're very dishonest people. In fact, in covering my comments, the dishonest media did not explain that I called the fake news the enemy of the people, the fake news. They dropped off the word fake. And all of a sudden, the story became the media is the enemy. They take the word fake out. And now I'm saying, oh, no, this is no good. But that's the way they are. So I'm not against the media. I'm not against the press. I don't mind bad stories if I deserve them. And I tell you, I love good stories, but we won't. I don't get too many of them. But I am only against the fake news media or press.
French President François Hollande has hit back at his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump over his remarks, which question the security situation in Paris. Hollande has urged Trump to consider the gun violence and mass shootings in the U.S. while commenting about other countries.
Je ne ferai pas de comparaison, mais ici, il n'y a pas de circulation d'armes.
I won't make comparisons, but here people don't have access to guns. Here you don't have people with guns opening fire on the crowd simply for the satisfaction of causing drama and tragedy. Alas, there's terrorism, and we must fight it together. I think that it's never good to show the smallest defiance toward an allied country. I wouldn't do it with the U.S., and I asked the U.S. president not to do it with France.
Hollande's comments came after Trump once again criticized some European countries over their immigration policies. He claimed that one of his friends was not willing to travel to Paris any longer, given the recent terror attacks in the city. Mayor of Paris also criticized the U.S. president for the remarks. A series of terror attacks have hit Paris since 2015, killing more than 230 people. The country has been run under a state of emergency since then. And hundreds of thousands of people have demonstrated in South Korea demanding a halt to President Park Geun-hye's impeachment. A mass that is a counter-demonstration is also staged in downtown Seoul, in which protesters there demanded the president be removed and sent to prison. Now, the rallies are held as the Constitutional Court will soon issue its verdict on whether to uphold Park's impeachment or reinstate her back to office. Press News' Frank Smith reports.
South Korea's national anthem sounded the call on Saturday for an estimated 800,000 people who rallied in Seoul to demand the removal of embattled President Park Geun-hye from office and her imprisonment along with her prime minister.
To argue that Park should be exonerated from responsibility for the Sewol ferry tragedy is to insult me and my fellow women. We must extend the independent council investigation and put Park Geun-hye and Hwang Kyo-won behind bars.
In front of Seoul City Hall, tens of thousands of ardent nationalists had a completely opposite demand. They wanted the president to return to the presidential palace office after being impeached by the National Assembly December 9th. Some argued that the scandal surrounding Park is a conspiracy made by the media and North Korea's sympathizers.
Pro-North Korea forces are holding candlelight protests, and the press is twisting the facts and reporting fake, fabricated news. Citizens watching TV and reading newspapers are being fooled. We're here to awaken them to the truth. Impeachment should not just be dismissed, but discarded entirely.
In addition to the impeachment, Bok Geun-hye faces another independent investigation. Many believe that once no longer president, Bok should be subject to criminal prosecution.
I think the pro-Park protesters also care about the country. I wanted to see for myself. Yet since the beginning of this scandal, so many people saw that President Park committed so many wrongdoings that a president should never commit. In that regard, I personally find it hard to understand those who oppose impeachment.
Anti-Bok demonstrations have been going on for more than 4 months after revelations surfaced of widespread corruption in her administration.
Just hours ahead of what looks set to be the most politicised Academy Awards in years, thousands gathered in London for a premiere that was part screening, part protest. The Oscar-nominated movie The Salesman, whose Iranian director is boycotting the ceremony, has become a rallying point for opponents of US President Donald Trump's immigration policy. London Mayor Sadiq Khan made clear his political motivation in hosting its UK premiere.
President Trump can't silence me.
Do you think this will help send a message to President Trump?
Well, I'm not sure about sending a message to President Trump. What I'm keen to do is bring communities together. What I'm keen to do is show the world that London is open.
Farhadi is the bookmaker's favourite to win another Best Foreign Language Film statuette later on Sunday, but is staying away in protest at Trump's attempt to ban people from 7 Muslim-majority countries from entering the US. In a video message from Tehran, he said he was heartened by the reaction of filmmakers and artists to what he called the oppressive travel ban. British director Mike Leigh hailed him as the master for movie makers who make films about real people.
Our protest is, of course, against President Trump's cynical, divisive and destructive policies, especially his unforgivable travel ban.
Malaysia's health minister said on Sunday that autopsy results suggested a nerve agent caused a very serious paralysis, which killed the exiled Kim Jong-nam, half-brother of North Korea's leader. Police completed a sweep of the Budget terminal, where he was poisoned, and declared it safe of any deadly toxin. Friday's revelation by Malaysian police that the banned chemical weapon VX nerve agent was used to kill Kim raised the stakes significantly in a case that has broad geopolitical implications. The killing of Kim Jong-nam took place amongst crowds of travelers at Kuala Lumpur's airport and appeared to be a well-planned hit. Kim died on the way to a hospital just hours later.
Thousands of Russians marched through the center of Moscow on Sunday to honor opposition leader Boris Nemtsov 2 years after he was gunned down near the Kremlin walls, and to call for further investigation into his killing. The 55-year-old Nemtsov, a former deputy prime minister and prominent critic of President Vladimir Putin, was shot dead on a bridge near the Kremlin late in the evening of February 27, 2015, as he walked home with his girlfriend from a restaurant. Police put the number of marchers at 5,000, but a group of voluntary observers said there were more than 15,000 demonstrators. The march gathered together political parties and opposition movements. One banner read, "Boris Nemtsov, a hero of Russia."